NBC10 breaking news.
A deadly day of chaos in the Capitol. Thousands of rioters, urged by the President of the United States to march, formed a violent pro-Trump mob that swarmed the Capitol building. In the last 2 hours, a drastic call from one lawmaker from our area to invoke the 25th Amendment, removing President Trump from office.
All this happening as the House and Senate met to formally count the certified electoral ballots that will make Joe Biden the next president. A live look at that effort back underway tonight. Those ballots actually rescued from the Senate floor earlier. President-elect Biden could be confirmed within the hour. You're watching NBC 10 News at 11 o'clock tonight. I'm Jim Rosenfield.
And I'm Jacqueline London. These stunning images show the frenzy outside the Capitol building. Rioters breaking through barricades, sending Congress to evacuate or take shelter. Officers were forced to draw their guns with protesters just outside the door. These rioters emboldened by the president, some even believing he would march with them to the Capitol. President Trump has called for peace, but with mixed messaging, continuing false claims that the election was stolen from him.
Inside the Capitol building, a woman was shot today by a member of law enforcement, and she later died. As police struggle to control the crowds, NBC is reporting that President Trump had to be convinced to deploy the National Guard to help.
There is a lot to break down and understand. Count on NBC 10 to bring you every angle. We begin with NBC 10's Drew Smith. Drew, lawmakers condemned the violence just a few hours ago as they got back to the electoral process.
Jacqueline, normally this process of counting the electoral votes doesn't take a long time, but today it was interrupted. Still, leaders of both parties in Congress wanted to continue the process tonight under the protection of multiple law enforcement agencies brought in to help.
The U.S. Capitol secured and back to business tonight.
Violence never wins. Freedom wins. And this is still the people's house.
Lawmakers resumed counting electoral votes after rioters stormed the building earlier this afternoon.
They tried to disrupt our democracy. They failed.
It was right after the president finished his speech to his supporters.
And we support you, 110%.
When the crowd headed to the Capitol steps.
There was a noticeable change in their demeanor.
Police say people broke through fences and barricades and pushed past lines of officers. On the floor of the House, police drew their guns, and you can see rioters trying to smash their way in. Then a gunshot. In the violence, a woman was shot and later died. Over in the Senate, another breach. The entire building had to be evacuated,
leaving rioters to stalk these hallowed halls.
The intruders took pictures, roamed the halls, and scaled down the walls. This man put his feet up on Speaker Nancy Pelosi's desk. Outside the Capitol, authorities say they found weapons and improvised explosive devices, which they safely detonated. Police made at least 15 arrests. A curfew went into effect at 6 o'clock, though demonstrators remained out along with large numbers of law enforcement after sundown.
The behavior that we are witnessing is shameful, unpatriotic, and above all, it is unlawful.
You heard from Senate leaders there. Speaker Pelosi also gavelled the House back into session about an hour after the Senate. She says that they'll stay as long as it takes to accomplish their purpose tonight. Back to you.
Thank you. And many of the nation's most powerful leaders were caught in the middle of the chaos. Cameras were rolling as rioters smashed their way inside the Capitol with the vice president and Congress members inside.
NBC 10's Matt DeLucia is here now with some of that video and also what our local Congress members are saying about their experience today. They will likely not soon forget, Matt.
Absolutely, Jim and Jackie. Several lawmakers from our area told us tonight they expected protests. They expected some fiery rhetoric, but nothing like this. House reps and senators used the one tool at their disposal, their phones, sharing what they were seeing and what they were hearing on a day, like you mentioned, they most certainly will never forget.
And it will stand in recess.
On the Senate floor, you can see the moment everything stopped, when members began evacuating after rioters got into the building. Minutes later, they could be seen walking around the floor as lawmakers took cover.
Everybody stay down! Get down!
We were just told that there has been tear gas in the rotunda.
Some members and police barricaded doors as rioters tried to break through. Congresswoman Madeleine Dean was in the House gallery.
They said
would you please reach under your seats and open gas masks? You don't have to put them on yet, but people have infiltrated the Capitol. Tear gas has been dispersed.
Philly Congressman Dwight Evans was in his office at the time.
I don't think anyone had anticipated that this Capitol would be overrun.
He and others were told to stay put while Capitol Police tried to regain control of the building.
For me, I just tried to make sure I could get somewhere safe.
New Jersey Congressman Andy Kim spoke with us once he got to safety.
I hate to see this type of action really trying to interrupt and tarnish our democracy. So it's very much a sad day for all of us.
Tonight, he was anxious to get back to work. Congressman Brendan Boyle from Pennsylvania told us he won't allow a mob to end democracy in the United States.
I don't care if I have to sleep here the next 2 weeks. We are going to do our constitutional duty.
Moving forward after a dark day.
I ask your continued prayers for our safety here, but also for the healing of this country.
Delaware Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester there. Eventually, the Capitol was cleared. Congressional leaders were taken to secure locations, and of course, they have since returned. Congressman Dwight Evans told me tonight he, too, is prepared to stay all night if that's what it takes to get the job done. Jackie.
And what happens next? Right now, there is a growing movement calling for President Trump to be removed from office even before President-elect Biden is inaugurated in 2 weeks. Tonight, Pennsylvania Democratic Congresswoman Madeleine Dean tweeted that she is requesting Vice President Mike Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment and begin the process of assuming the duties from President Trump. The 25th Amendment provides the procedures for replacing the president or vice president in the event of death, removal, resignation, or incapacitation. In this case, the vice president would be the one to assume the position of president for the next 2 weeks. The Washington Post editorial board also calling for Mr. Pence and the cabinet to act, writing, "The president is unfit to remain in office for the next 14 days. Every second he retains the vast powers of the presidency is a threat to public order and national security." Some Democratic lawmakers say they are drawing up articles of impeachment. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar tweeting, "We can't allow him to remain in office. It's a matter of preserving our republic, and we need to fulfill our oath." Social media giants taking action against President Trump tonight, blocking his ability to post.
Twitter and Facebook saying the president broke their rules against inciting violence. Twitter removed 3 of his tweets and suspended him for 12 hours. Facebook blocked him for 24 hours. And YouTube pulled down a video from the president for falsely claiming widespread voter fraud. The riots at the Capitol leading to resignations tonight at the White House, including the First Lady's Chief of Staff, Stephanie Grisham, whom you see here. She previously was the White House press secretary. NBC News reports more departures could be coming, including at least one of the president's cabinet members.
Earlier today, President-elect Joe Biden addressed the violence on Capitol Hill. Speaking in Delaware, Biden called the scene insurrection.
The scenes of chaos at the Capitol do not reflect a true America, do not represent who we are. What we're seeing are a small number of extremists dedicated to lawlessness. This is not dissent, it's disorder, it's chaos.
Shortly after Biden's address, President Trump tweeted out a video continuing his attacks on the election results, but also encouraging the mob to go home.
So how did it come to this? President Trump encouraged his supporters to march to the U.S. Capitol today in protest of the election results. Hundreds made their way to the building where Congress was meeting to count the electoral votes. As expected, some Republicans objected to the count. The House and Senate separated to their chambers to debate the objection. And shortly after that, rioters breached security and overran the building. Now, you may have seen rioters hanging from some rafters today. Well, they were just constructed. There they are. They were put up last week for President-elect Biden's inauguration. Today, reporters asked Mr. Biden whether he had concerns about his safety at the inauguration on January 20th. Biden said he does not. Still ahead, Philadelphia Sixers head coach Doc Rivers not holding back about what he saw in Washington today.
I'll say it because I don't think a lot of people want to. Could you imagine today if those were all black people
The larger conversation about race and law enforcement response that Doc Rivers is opening up now. That story in less than 5 minutes. Jackie.
The chaos at the Capitol overshadowing the other big political news today. The Democrats have flipped the Senate after sweeping the Georgia runoff races. NBC News projects both Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff winners in their races. And that shifts the balance of power. With the Democrats winning both seats, there is a 50-50 split in the Senate. And the tie-breaking vote on who will control the Senate comes down to Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. The counting continues, but the results of the Senate runoff elections are evident and historic. Ossoff beat out Republican David Perdue. And in the second race, Republican incumbent Kelly Loeffler fell to Warnock. He will be the first black senator from Georgia and the 11th African-American to serve in the upper chamber.
As a pastor, I'm used to walking alongside people at their high moments and their low moments. And it's the honor of my life that I get to represent the people of this very great state in the United States Senate.
Senator Kelly Loeffler has yet to concede in the race. She was caught up in today's chaos at the Capitol building and says she no longer objects to the counting of the electoral votes.
I believe that there were last-minute changes to the November 2020 election process and serious irregularities that resulted in too many Americans losing confidence not only in the integrity of our elections, but in the power of the ballot as a tool of democracy. Too many Americans are frustrated at what they see as an unfair system. Nevertheless, there is no excuse for the events that took place in these chambers today, and I pray that America never suffers such a dark day again.
Earlier this week, Loeffler joined President Trump at an election rally, vowing to challenge Georgia's Electoral College results. And we're right back after this.
We have a breaking update right now from D.C. police. 4 people actually died at the Capitol today during riots. We told you earlier about one woman who was shot by police. Well, now we are learning 3 others died. It was in medical emergencies. We don't know who those other 3 are or exactly how they died. And now looking closely at this stunning security breach and questions of whether the race of the rioters influenced the law enforcement response.
A Philadelphia head coach raised that question. Would another group of demonstrators have been treated the same way? NBC10's Aaron Baskerville reports.
Before the Sixers game tonight, head coach Doc Rivers posed a question about what happened in D.C. today. He told reporters, "I'm going to say something that so many are thinking about right now."
Could you imagine today if those were all black people storming the Capitol and what would have happened? So that to me is a picture that's worth 1,000 words for all of us.
They are the images of shock and awe for everyone watching across the country. Some saw a difference between how police handled the mob of Trump supporters and Black Lives Matter demonstrators this summer. It's caught the attention of Doc Rivers, who's always been outspoken about social issues.
When you saw the protests in the summer and you saw the riots or more the police and the National Guard and the Army, and then you see this and you saw nothing. It basically proves the point about a privileged life.
Rioters stormed the Capitol, breaking windows, scaling walls, and taking over offices.
It's definitely a double standard.
Kasia Stein tells NBC10 she's been glued to what's going on. She sees a difference between how some demonstrators are treated versus others.
If it wasn't the conservative white male population coming in, I think it would have been just like we saw in Philly on the Parkway, to be completely honest. I mean, it doesn't have to be all black people.
At least one security expert we talked to tonight questioned the police response, believing the National Guard should have been called in overnight and not this afternoon. Rivers noted he saw some rioters escorted peacefully out of the Capitol.
If you're a black American, it definitely touches you in a different way. This is not a black thing. This is an American thing again today, and we shouldn't turn it into that. but it definitely makes you think.
A day of history that no one will soon forget. Aaron Baskerville, NBC10 News.
And another question tonight, does responsibility lie with the president for inciting today's violence at the Capitol? NBC 10's Lauren Make asks one of our local congressmen who is planning to object to the electoral vote.
The president was out speaking to people before they marched to the Capitol, talking about marching to the Capitol. Is he responsible for what happened there today?
Well, it's one thing to march to the Capitol. It's another thing to try to get ropes and climb the Capitol, break into the Capitol, and do some harm. So I think that's a different issue. To go and, again, peacefully protest, if that's what he suggests, and it's what he's suggesting now, is fine. But to suggest that we should do anything that's inappropriate or breaks the rule of law. I keep talking about that. It's everything that we're discussing when it comes to the elections. It's everything we're discussing in the American way of life and what we do. And it also pertains to even this issue here. It is so contrary and so unusual that literally while we're debating the rule of law and whether elections were carried through by the rule of law, at the same time the rule of law was being broken in Washington.
I know you were also planning on objecting today to some of the electors. Would you also encourage them to accept the results of the election? Joe Biden is due to be inaugurated in a couple of weeks.
Well, those are two different issues. So I think that
how do we
eventually
make sure that this doesn't happen on January 20th?
Well, January 20th, we have to have a president, and we have to go through with the process.
So, how did this massive breach of security happen? That's the question many are asking tonight. Security experts say police were not prepared to deal with hundreds of pro-Trump rioters swarming the U.S. Capitol. Well, we spoke to a retired Philly cop. He says the top priority for law enforcement is to ensure the safety of U.S. lawmakers.
They have to stand their ground when they're protecting members of Congress and the Senate. They simply cannot retreat. They must stand their ground, and they must protect those elected officials. So the questions that are going to be asked was, there was a lot of intel on this event, and you have to trust in your intel, and you have to plan utilizing your intel. And you always want to plan for the worst case scenario and hope that it doesn't occur.
At least 15 people from 8 different states were arrested in today's rioting. New Jersey State Police were dispatched to Washington to help with the protests. Look at this video right here. You can see police loading their bags and boarding these buses. Governor Phil Murphy saying members of the New Jersey National Guard will also be deployed if they're needed.
While hundreds of pro-Trump rioters stormed the Capitol, others were seen harassing members of the media. Take a look at this mob stomping on cameras near the U.S. Capitol. This video is from one of the reporters at our sister station in Washington. He said he has never seen anything like this in his 20-year career.
I'll give you real reporting because I was up there. You guys are standing here. Here.
Rioters were also seen blocking NBC News cameras. This video was taken just outside the U.S. Capitol lawn. You can see several people blocking the cameras. Some were even seen verbally abusing crews.
All right, time for a break here, right? Let's pause, maybe check in on your first alert forecast. Pretty comfortable stretch. We're right in the middle of it. It continues in Manioc tonight.
Some calm here. NBC 10 First Alert meteorologist Brittany Shipp joining us with how long this calm weather will last.
Well, this is going to last for quite a while. So we saw a dry work week. This will continue towards the end of the work week, right into the weekend. It won't be until next week that we have a chance of storms. But tomorrow we'll see even more sunshine, and we will continue to stay dry. So those are the 3 things to know. Temperature-wise right now, we're cooling down to the mid-30s in Bluebell, 34 degrees in Coatesville. We're at 35 in Dover, 37 degrees currently in Wildwood. Temperatures in Trenton down to 34 as well. Totally quiet here on our satellite radar shot. We're barely even tracking any clouds for you. So we'll see a round of sunshine tomorrow, more clouds on Friday. Part of the reason why we have a little weather disturbance here that's going to get a bit closer to us, but it's only going to give us a few isolated showers closer to Delaware, the southern part of Delaware. And then we have a dry Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. of next week, things start to get a little more interesting here. By 8 o'clock, we have a chance to see rain showers, and this could linger throughout most of the day, Tuesday night into Wednesday. And then as we see the system departing the region right now, it looks like all rainfall. There is a potential for more of a wintry mix as the cooler end of the system starts to move through parts of Philadelphia. So we're going to watch that closely for you. But again, that's not until we get to next Tuesday and Wednesday. Tonight, however, we'll drop down below freezing in Philadelphia with a feels-like temperature of just 22 degrees. So as we start off tomorrow, your feels-like temperature will be in the mid-20s with lots of sunshine here. Even as we get closer to 1 o'clock, although our temperatures will head into the mid-40s, the feels-like temperature throughout most of tomorrow will stay in the mid to high 30s, so you definitely still need to bundle up. Actual daytime highs tomorrow up to 42 degrees in Wildwood, 44 in Dover, 46 in Philly, 43 degrees in Doylestown, and 42 in Westchester. 10-day forecast shows quiet conditions will continue straight through the weekend, even into Monday. Temperatures are going to hover right around 40 degrees. And then as we look to next week, Tuesday, we have a chance to see maybe a wintry mix, maybe a little bit of rainfall, and same thing as we go into next Friday as well. So until then, just enjoy at least the calm weather conditions. Jim and Jacqueline?
Looking forward to lots of sun, Britt. Thank you.
To this, talking to your children about the violence in the Capitol. A child psychologist has tips for parents next.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Jacqueline. Tonight we have an all-new show with journalist Dan Rather, Don Cheadle, NBC News correspondent Katie Tur, and music from Michael Kiwanuka. It's an all-new Tonight Show right after you guys.
Chaos, violence, fear. These are images that we'll no doubt remember for years to come as rioters storm the Capitol building.
But here's a question. What do you say to your kids when they start asking questions about all of this? Well, I spoke with an expert from the Center for Grief and Trauma Therapy about how to help your children understand what happened today.
While the events of today were very scary, that they are safe where they are, and these things are difficult to watch, but it's not happening right there, right with them at this moment, so they are safe. And I think it's okay to be honest and to explain that, you know, adults in the world are confused too, and this is hard for everyone, and we can't predict the future, but I'll be here. We'll be here to talk to you about it whenever you want to.
And experts say it's good to be honest with your kids, but depending on their age, of course, you might not want to give them too much information about exactly what happened today. And we'll be right back.
This is Sports Desk, brought to you by Xfinity, the fastest internet in Philadelphia.
Hey, good to see you. Danny Palmel from NBC Sports Philadelphia here. The team with the best record in the NBA on the court in South Philly tonight. The one-loss Philadelphia 76ers looking for their 5th win in a row as they battle the Washington Wizards. The Sixers came out of the gates shooting the lights out, led by Seth Curry. He hit his first 6 from beyond the arc, season high 28 for him. The Sixers had complete control in this one, except for Bradley Beal, a career high 60. He brings the Wizards back from a 17-point deficit. Fourth quarter, Joel Embiid, the bang in the bucket, 38 points for the big fella. Sixers up 3, now a 4-point game. Embiid to Ben Simmons, bucket and the foul, 17 points, 12 assists for Ben as the Sixers win a wild one, 141 to 136.
We were fortunate to win the game, but again, we're not going to win them all pretty. We'll take a win for sure.
That paid me to take over the game. That paid me to dominate. I'm in a situation where, these guys have a lot of trust in me. So that was my job. So I just did my job.
That is your look at sports. I'm Danny Palmel from NBC Sports Philadelphia.
Before we leave you, taking a live look here at the floor of the House of Representatives at this late hour. Efforts carry on to confirm President-elect Joe Biden's victory after a violent day at the Capitol. That confirmation is expected to come at any time. Tune in tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. for the latest on NBC 10 News Today. On this historic day, we thank you for joining us on NBC 10 News at 11. I'm Jim Rosenfield.
And I'm Jacqueline London. Thank you for counting on us during this day of chaos at the Capitol as Trump supporters filled the halls and chambers in an attempt to block the confirmation process. Much more to come tomorrow. We'll see you then.